Oh, sorry, I meant to give you the nod there, Gary. Good evening, citizens and councillors. Welcome to this IBAF before we were so rudely interrupted. The first one since February 2020, I believe, or was it 2019? Long time anyway. But thank you for 2020 February. Okay. I'm Tony Lukey. I'm the new chair of Isleworth and Brentford Area Forum. Back in the chair since a previous time. Yeah, welcome. We've got quite an agenda tonight, and hopefully it'll be of interest to everybody. Right, have we got any apologies for absence? Bill?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies from councillors Steve Cohen, Catherine Dunn, Sue Sampson and Corinna Smart. And Councillor Said.
And Councillor Dani Said. Councillor Dani Said is chairing the school governors meeting tonight. Two of the other governors have gone down with COVID, so she stepped into the breach chair at Cranford Community College, where she's a governor. I know she would have liked to have been here following the events of last Thursday. Right. And have we got any declarations of interest from members on any of the items on the agenda? Okay, thank you. And sorry, I forgot to introduce the Vice Chair of Isleworth and Brentford Area Forum, Councillor Mel Collins, Brentford Ward Councillor. All right, thank you. So let's get on with it. Sorry, any communication from members? Anybody want to say anything? Yes? No? Hello, Councillor Dennison. Right, okay. All right. Right, so what we've got, item 2, agenda item 2, we've got the police report. I'll take it you've all read the police report. Sorry, if you haven't got an agenda, there's some on the table up the back there. If you're short of an agenda in the box there, sorry, should have mentioned that immediately. But what we have here, we have the police report, and what we're not going to do. We're not going to have anybody reading it out, have a look at it. But what we do have, who we do have here, is we have Sergeant Jim Cope, who is he's the area sergeant. He covers Ostley and Spring Grove. He covers the teams at Ostley and Spring Grove Ward, Syon Ward, and Brentford Ward, and he'll take anything on Isleworth Ward as well. He'll take anything back to his colleagues there. So, can I offer councillors the opportunity to ask Jim a question? Councillor Shaheen.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the officers who are here tonight. Thank you for your report. I'm very grateful for that. I think it's very important for engagement with both councillors and members of the public. And I'm councillor for Isleworth, so this won't be for you, but this is to bring back to your colleagues there. I'm very grateful to the police for everything they do, for the amount of work they do, and I know that you're incredibly stretched. But one concern that was brought to me by a constituent was that it has been difficult of late to get police to come along to the Isleworth ward panels. It's been difficult to they've been trying to set meeting dates and they've struggled to get police along. Also, the members of the Isleworth ward panel are very, very keen, very eager to bring to the police intelligence that they've gathered about crimes that they have witnessed or alleged crimes that they've witnessed, but they're finding, and I'm sure this is because the police are incredibly overstretched, but they are finding that their communications with the police are often going unanswered. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in the nicest way possible, to bring back to Isleworth and just see if we can enhance engagement a little bit with the Isleworth ward panel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will pass that on to Sergeant Catherine Nottage. She runs the Isleworth ward, and I'll pass that information on.
And you can share contacts with, maybe give, give Jim your contact details to remind Catherine and ways to, ways to meet. And maybe in the next councillor surgery, perhaps they catch up with you there, maybe. Okay, Councillor Guy Lambert, did you have your hand up? You did.
Thank you, Chair. Jim, also thanks for the excellent work that the police do in Brentford Ward. I'm a bit perturbed, though, that Brentford is one of the biggest wards in the borough, and in fact, so big it's going to be split into two next May. And it has the second highest crime rate, or level of crime across the whole of Hounslow, certainly the whole of this side. And yet, it seems we're going to go down to one PC, and it's not clear when we're going to get another PC, whereas Isleworth, which has got very little crime, relatively, has got 3 PCs. It doesn't seem logical to me. So perhaps you could help with that.
Yeah, one of our PCs, PC Mohammed Riaz, is being transferred or is going off to become part of the CID team. We have got another officer coming to join us, a PC who is brand new out of training school, but we will be, we've currently got Josh Harvey, PC Josh Harvey. He's staying with us for another 2 weeks, and he's on his probationary journey rotation. And then we will be getting a PC in 2 weeks to replace him. So, all being well, Councillor, we will be back up to 2 PCs and 1 PSSO for the ward.
I'd merely say that the size of the ward merits at least 3, compared with smaller wards which have, perhaps you can argue for that.
I'm constantly arguing regarding numbers. Hopefully, I mean, we are making the transfer. Obviously, we're closing Chiswick down, unfortunately. We're being relocated on the 10th of November, where we will be based out of Hounslow. All being well, we will hopefully get a lot more recruitment and retention as a result of that relocation. Obviously, around the uncertainty of Chiswick, since I've joined here in January, with officers travelling time and home, they are thinking, well, they need to strike a balance between work and home, and obviously Hounslow will probably be a lot more better for other officers being able to join us. So I'm hoping that our recruitment, so that I get all my positions on all my 3 wards filled.
Councillor Eason.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. First one, building on what Councillor Lambert's just said. The new ward boundaries apply for the elections in May. I was wondering if you know, or if you can find out when or how the police are going to respond to that in terms of any reorganisation of ward teams and timing of that. And secondly, in terms of ward panels, I've seen a very good Met Police ward panel handbook that was produced earlier this year. I'm just wondering whether that has been circulated to all ward panels and all neighbourhood teams, because it sets out some expectations of how the community and the police will work together, and some perhaps some standardisation of best practice. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, with regards to the changing boundaries, I must admit, that's something that I've raised to a higher level, because obviously it is going to make a massive difference to terms of numbers and who, on the officers, because I believe Turnham Green will probably be incorporating other areas that Brentford used to cover. Therefore, they need to look at obviously the increasing size of the boundary and the ward size and actually getting there. So that's something I have raised to my inspector, that we need to be a bit more prepared for this. So we are sort of horizon scanning and seeing what the implications are for us in terms of policing.
I would imagine that it's affecting many London boroughs, a lot of ward changes over the next few months.
Oh, 100%, yes. You know, and you know, there's only, you know, us identifying that early on. Hopefully, you know, as I say, I've passed that information up that it's a concern for us. And all being well, then more than likely there will be someone from the central Safer Neighbourhood team that has probably got this in hand, but they've just not disseminated it down to us as yet. With regards to the War Panel Handbook, yeah, that handbook is literally every single officer who is a DWO, a dedicated ward officer, will have access to that War Panel. And I've read it myself with regards, and it is the standard and best practice for delivering the ward panel.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got two things. First of all, a lot of the community representatives on the Brentford Wall panel have expressed their concern that due to the fluctuation in your establishment, so to speak, that when there are problems in London, particularly with the demonstrations and the recent demonstrations around the M25 and other areas, that there is a slow reaction to cover people that have been seconded to those particular hotspots. I know it's a catch-22, but I think it's only right and proper here that I should voice that concern to you. The second and probably most contentious thing that's happening in our ward probably over the last 6 months is the amount of crime which is now manifesting itself in some of the newer properties in Baltic Avenue, on the Great West Quarter site, and particularly in and around Leighton Road and the Leighton Road footbridge. I wonder if you could take back to your team that is still simmering, and people are getting very concerned that that there is no overall reduction in that area, because you're so stretched that people are up and gone by the time you get there.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, with regards to abstractions from the ward, yeah, it's an absolute nightmare with regards to, you know, policing large-scale events that are occurring in London. You know, I myself, obviously, Extinction Rebellion occurred over that period in August. There was a lot of abstractions from my team and myself where we weren't able to actually be on the ward due to long periods of time down in central London. Basically, we are being used as a result is there are no more police officers in the box to be used, and unfortunately, you know, we are being withdrawn from our day jobs, and where we want to be, our main priority is to be on to our wards and our communities. But unfortunately, you know, that's something that is out of our hands. But I will pass on to the Brentford team regards to Leighton Road, Great West Quarter. I know we were down there today, having the police around that area. And we will focus on the Leighton Road, as I know that we've discussed that in great depth at the Wall Panel meetings. But I will bring that up. I believe our next one is in November anyway, very soon. So I believe we'll probably address that again during that meeting.
Thanks. I just want to add, when Councillor Chowdhury and I put the shout out to you, come down to Spencer Road, and you did. You came down with PCSO Gurpreet Singh and the PCSO, was it Liam from Chiswick Riverside Ward, and I think residents appreciated that. That day, and we're also buoyed that you came back again off your own bat without actually being caught, and also the fact that you've also visited our you know, you visited Wickham House. They've had their crime there, their Sportsfield crime there, stuff being stolen. And also I think I missed you that day, but when Councillor Chowdhury and I were down at the Indian Gincana, you went down there to give them advice on the back of the Spencer Road visit. So good to see that even with limited resources that you're kind of doing that. Thank you very much. Can I throw this open to residents? Christine Dywell, Mr. Ray there, Christine Dywell, and then yourself there. Yeah. There's a mic coming to you, Christine.
Just following on from what Councillor Sheehan said about the Isleworth panel, there have been a lot of confusion about trying to fix a date for a panel meeting. And unfortunately, both the chair and, well, the two joint chairs of the panel have both resigned. PC Hills has offered a selection of dates that the police can make for another one. Although I'm not prepared to take over as chair, because I don't want the panel to collapse, I have said that I will try and arrange for one of those dates to go firm, and obviously it would be helpful if PC Hills could perhaps liaise with me over that, because I don't want to just take the dates he's given and then find when I've managed to arrange something that by then they can't make it. My other point is they did, as it says in the report, have a coffee morning at Tesco, which was advertised in their newsletter. I don't know how widely that goes, but I was the only person who turned up at Tesco and had coffee with them. I do think that rather than perhaps just sitting there having a coffee, when other people coming in think that's why they're there, to have a coffee, that they've got to be a little bit more proactive in putting themselves about and saying, look, I'm here, have you got any problems, are you local? Maybe a bit of networking might not come amiss.
Thank you. Yes, I will pass that on to Richard Hills then, that he needs to be more energetic in Costa. But yeah, I totally agree with you. We're terrible at advertising stuff really sometimes, and with regards to engagement, and we should be a bit more proactive in that terms. If we're in a venue and we're there, then we should be engaging with whoever comes in and having a chat and making our presence felt and introducing ourselves as the ward officers. With regards to the ward panel, I'll let him know, I'll email him directly so that we can firm this date up so that we can begin to run the Isleworth, and I'll let Catherine Nottage know obviously that your concerns as well. Would we have your details, or shall I come over and get them from you at some point? Yeah, I'll before I leave, I'll come over and say hello.
Thank you, Sergeant Cope. Asif.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, the public representatives and the council officials. Sergeant Jim, we really salute and appreciate the hard work that our policing community is doing it into the difficult time. Now, the community policing and the policing community, what are the measures that has been taken? Being a resident in Brentford, I have been a victim of catalytic converter theft in a broad daylight. And there was a passerby who called the police, and the people, those who have not taken my catalytic converter, 2,500, but also mugged a van and drove away. Then after a week, a friend of mine across that in Rainyard, a new development, couple of people were victims of that threat. And in Hounslow, we have found there were digital videos on the YouTube floating where people in Hounslow, broad day, mugging that, threatening people, and nothing is happening. I wanted to know how can the community and the policing can come along together to kind of address these issues, which really left me very destitute. I could not even, claim from my insurance, and it is none of my fault, but it has affected my livelihood and car and all these kind of things. And we understand our councillor officials, our public representatives, we are all part of the society that we work along and work together. What can we do, Sergeant, to kind of address these things, and also in order to relieve those who are victim on the basis of the confiscated resources that police or the criminal justice system recovered from the criminals? This can be helped towards those who have been a victim of that crime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, catalytic converter theft is one of the most, probably one of the most difficult sort of crimes to actually prevent. I'm originally from a design out crime background, so crime prevention, and even from 3 years ago, the engagement that we were trying with car manufacturers then to explain you are making vehicles which have an easily accessible catalytic converter, which I wouldn't want to hazard a guess on how long it took them to remove your converter, but I would suggest it would probably 1 minute minimum. Because with the use of high-powered, cordless equipment, you've got a 24-volt cutter. It slices through the metal like butter. Literally, it only requires minimum lifting, and the positioning on certain vehicles means that they can just get it. And unfortunately, by the time a 999 call comes into us and we respond, there is, literally they're gone. And they work in teams, so they tend to drive around in multiple vehicles, so 3 or 4 vehicles, so there's always weight in numbers, hence why you get the offer of violence if people challenge them. There's always some other people around. They also driving in, the actual vehicles they're using are stolen 9 times out of 10 or on false plates. So with regards to tracking, we've got massive use of the automatic number plate reading systems for the M4 and A4 corridor. And certainly, most of the criminals who commit the offence of catalytic converter theft in Hounslow are from the Thames Valley, Surrey area, travelling in, using the main sort of transport links because once they get onto the M4, that's it, they're towed down, and, before you know it, they're back the other side of the M25. But I can assure you that obviously the traffic officers there are literally traffic officers assigned to the A4, M4 corridor solely for this purpose. And the intelligence that they gather has led to operations in the Thames Valley, Surrey region, where addresses have been raided and catalytic converters have been recovered. But the issue is returning them back to their owners, because they're not, once they've been cut, they're absolutely useless. Obviously, they're only stealing them for the precious metals inside them. They're not stealing them for any other, it's the rhodium or whatever metals inside. I'll be more than happy to share some crime prevention advice with you if I get an email address from you at the end, because it's quite complicated, and that can be shared.
I got a brand new car from the Toyota, and I have given talk because I'm an active, and I said it's happening to the people, and it's happening to the people, and let's try to find out if the criminals are so much smart. Then we have got the local council, administration, and public representative in place, and we can put the things that is make difficult for them, and also police and car manufacturers liaise together. How can we address it? Because believe you me, you can't imagine this small things done to me more than £7,000, and people struggling. It's very difficult.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, thank you, Jim. I mean, we get that, and we get a lot of that in Austin Spring Grove Ward. A lot of residents have started protecting their vehicles or parking them up in a different way, and we do welcome, and I know residents do welcome the messages via OWL on how to protect their cars, park them correctly, and there's quite a few people actually putting bollards up on their drives now to protect their motors. Look, any other questions for Sergeant Cope before we move on? Okay. Look, thank you very much, Jim. Good to see you again, and you're welcome to stay. But I know you're busy, and if you want to go, don't be shy. Yeah, thank you. All right. Well,
thank you, Councillor.
Right. We now come to the part that's called open forum. We've had probably about 20 questions sent through. Now, I will only allow one supplementary question from anybody who asks, anybody who's posed a question. So those of you who have submitted 9, you've only got 1, so you know which question you want to answer. You want the supplement on. So I'll read out summaries of the questions and responses from officers that are in front of Bill Lee, our committee administrator. There are a few questions that I will answer as well, and I might ask the odd councillor to chip in too. So, all these questions from Osley White Green Residents Association. Question 1 is on hospitality, asking whether it's acceptable for the leader of the council, who's also cabinet member for corporate strategy, planning and regeneration, to accept hospitality at sports events from developers who are submitting planning applications in the borough. Bill.
The response from Democratic Services is that members are entitled to accept hospitality so long as it is declared in accordance with statutory requirements.
Okay, thank you. Next question is on GSK, asking the council how long the council's known about GSK moving out of the area. How does this affect the local plan, proposed redevelopment of Tesco home base? What's the council planning to do with the existing premises at GSK?
The response has been received from our planning officers that the council was not given prior notice of the announcement made by GlaxoSmithKline last Monday of its plans to relocate part of its current workforce from GSK House in Brentford to new facilities in Weybridge, and plans to relocate the remaining workforce to an alternative location which is yet to be determined by January 2024. Since then, we have met with GSK and have agreed to collaborate with them and other key stakeholders to better understand their plans and timescales, the impacts of the planned relocations on the borough's economy and local jobs and communities, any implications for the council's ambitions for the Great West Corridor, if any, and to assist them in determining its plans for the future relocation of the remaining GSK workforce and the long-term future of GSK House. The council has already established an internal task group to focus on this work.
Thank you, Bill. Third question, environmentally unfriendly buses. When will the H28 become an environmentally friendly bus? Currently, it sometimes idles at stops in residential areas, which cannot help with Hounslow's climate emergency. What about the other environmentally unfriendly buses in Hounslow?
We've had a response from our traffic officers on this. TfL have advised that vehicles on the H28 run on Euro 6 standard engines, which means the buses are low carbon and are instrumental in improving air quality, reducing emissions of nitrous oxide by up to 95%. In regards to idling, bus drivers are trained and regularly reminded to switch engines off if they are not about to go into service. At many garages, operators display posters reminding drivers to do this, and we, the council, monitor some of the busiest interchange areas of the network and instruct drivers to switch off if they're idling. Some of these issues are caused by buses running early. We're constantly monitoring timetables to ensure that the running time matches traffic conditions to try to avoid this happening where possible. TfL's longer-term plan is to switch to zero-emission buses, further reducing carbon emissions and air pollution and protecting the health of Londoners and the environment. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has recently announced that all new TfL buses in London will be zero-emission, and the commitment to deliver a 100% zero-emission bus fleet in London has been brought forward by 3 years, from 2037 to 2034.
Okay, thank you. Who are you talking to, myself or to both of us? All right. All right. Okay. All right. We'll do our best. Thank you. Right. Question: Paul Osley Park Hotel. There was a fair amount of accompanying information and incidents there, but the questions are: why has the council been so slow in reacting to major and long-standing complaints from residents living near the Osley Park Hotel? We understand that the deadline for the removal of the car wash equipment is the end of the year. Why so long? This is following 3 planning applications refused. So the answer is licensing, statutory noise nuisance, criminal activity, licensing, antisocial behaviour, waste storage, unless subject to planning condition, and criminal activities such as alleged stabbings are clearly important issues, but not matters that can be dealt with through the planning systems. Police licensing and enforcement team officers have visited the premises and have agreed that a revised licence application will be submitted by the operators this month. Unlawful building works and uses on the site, including the car wash, are matters for planning enforcement. Officers add, concerning the car wash, we received a complaint on 23rd of July 2021 that it was reopening. The planning enforcement team have previously taken steps to ensure a car wash was closed on the site. The site visit was undertaken on 30th of July to establish the breach, and a temporary stop notice issued on the 12th of August. Having failed to cease activities, an enforcement notice was issued on the 24th of September, requiring the removal of the facility to take effect on the 26th of October 2021, and within a 3-month compliance period. The permanent stop notice was also served on the same day. The operator of the car wash has chosen to appeal against the enforcement notice. It is now held in abeyance until the appeal is heard. We understand concerns that the car wash has reopened in spite of refusals of planning applications. However, the planning enforcement team has responded as swiftly as is possible through the planning system to address the situation, but it is a planning system that ensures every opportunity is given to a person who has breached planning controls to first regularise and then appeal against the council's actions. This means the planning enforcement process can be slow and frustrating for residents, but failure of officers to follow correct procedures simply means that efforts to remove the facility will fall on appeal. Similarly, notice has been given to the owner of our council's intention, to serve an enforcement notice on the unlawful building works that have been undertaken. We are currently awaiting a response. The opportunity remains for the developer to submit a retrospective application for the works and appeal against any decision made by the council. As such, we acknowledge concerns that the planning system can be slow to address such issues, but our actions have been as prompt as the system allows. We will continue to take all steps available to us to ensure the situation on site is regularised. Now, just to add, Councillor Runza Chowdhury has been leading on this in the ward, and she's been liaising with residents and officers to keep up a momentum. You got anything to add to that? What you're doing there, Runza?
Just to add that we're also speaking with TfL and have been in regular contact with them as well. I do probably contact the licensing team every day on this matter, and I'm sure they've got other things that they're also working on, but they are going to meet with residents, hopefully in a face-to-face meeting as requested by residents, and hopefully that it was going to be tomorrow, but Because we're expecting the notice from the operators to come in shortly, we thought we'd wait till that has happened and then meet after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I'm on the next one. Hounslow Labour Residents Survey 2021. Basis of this is Hounslow Labour delivered a flyer with a survey to residents in September asking for suggestions for their manifesto. Are Hounslow Labour totally unaware of the sensitivity in Ostley and Spring Grove Ward when there is so much anger at the council's plans to ram through the redevelopment of Tesco and Homebase to huge opposition in the area? Yet there was no mention of this in the flyer. Okay, well, because of their long-term involvement in Ostley and Spring Grove Ward, the 3 ward councillors, Unsa Chowdhury, Richard Eason and I, are totally aware of the sensitivities across the whole of our area, the largest in the London Borough of Hounslow. Most residents and those beyond our boundaries will be aware of our participation in discussions and meetings of and with residents and the Ostley and White Green Residents Association and other associations in this great ward. Indeed, I called and paid the rent for the first and only mass meeting of local people on the 29th of November 2019 at St Francis of Assisi Church to share Berkeley's proposals. Councillor Unsa Chowdhury called the Rushed Affordable Housing Committee report on the purchase of 184 properties by the council on the then as yet unapproved home-based scheme for scrutiny in January 2021. All 3 ward councillors made a good fist when speaking at the premature and badly managed planning committee on the 8th of April 2021. Even after the event, I recommended that our group begin gathering signatures for a petition to the Mayor of London to call in the application and help deliver it to City Hall in May 2021. All 3 ward councillors wrote to each and every Greater London Assembly member urging rejection of the Berkeley Prudential Tesco proposal at the London Assembly in September 2021. Since then, we have written and published our letter to Secretary of State Michael Gove MP to reject this insensitive and poorly thought out scheme. To conclude, from what I understand, that survey went to every household across the whole borough, not just the ward we try to represent. Between my colleagues and me, we are most sensitive. We have and continue to and always will be. Next one is question 6, planning. For the next IBAF meeting, 10th of February 2022, could we please devote most of the meeting to planning with a panel of Steve Curran, Niall Bolger, Sarah Scannell, Peter Matthew, planning enforcement, etc., to answer questions from local residents on planning. The meeting would need to be held in a large enough venue for residents to attend and also be live streamed. So my response is, as chair, I can offer opportunities for residents to put questions on planning issues via the open forum, and am willing to consider proposals for any specific matter to be placed on the IBAF agenda. You know that I and a number of other councillors present have great interest in planning, particularly from a resident's perspective, but would not wish to dedicate most of an IBAF to that effect. The next Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to be held on Tuesday the 9th of November at 7 o'clock in Hounslow House, will include a section on planning. And I'm sure the chair of that committee, Isleworth Ward Councillor Dani Saeed, will consider questions from residents to be put to the lead member. Otherwise, as a member of that committee also, I would consider posing the same. Next one, item 7, secondary school pupils and litter. What is being done with secondary schools in Hounslow to educate teenagers about not dropping litter? Primary school children do all sorts of touchy-feely activities on the environment, yet some of them seem to change into litter bugs when they become teenagers. A programme for spring term 2022 would be a good time now that we are coming out of the pandemic. I've not had a response from the Director of Education, so I can't respond to that, but when we do get one, we will post it onto the questionnaire and publish it on the pages for this meeting. Next item, Cleaner Greener Hounslow. Can we have an update on the activities of Cleaner Greener Hounslow and environmental champions at a future IBAF? Yes, of course. we can certainly schedule in a briefing and presentation for the February IBAF with a full update on the activities under Cleaner Greener Hounslow, and also incorporate updates from our recycling and reduction plan, green recovery, green infrastructure and climate emergency programs at the same time. 9. IBAF frequency. Can we please revert to quarterly IBAF as soon as possible? The response, written for us by officers, meetings of the area forum, like many other meetings of the council, will not convene regularly during the COVID restrictions. 2 face-to-face meetings of the area forum have been scheduled between now and spring 22, tonight being the 1st, and then again on the 10th of February 2022. Meetings are expected to return to their quarterly cycle following the local elections in May 2022. Right. Sorry? Briefly.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that Hounslow Highways have been working with secondary schools, and I know this because Boulder Academy have been out litter picking, and they have got the equipment from Hounslow Highways. So there is stuff that is happening, and I just wanted to add that to that point.
Okay, I know we've got Hounslow Highways here tonight, but let's keep it at that for the moment. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Look, there's a load of questions on flooding from Mr. Hunt. But as we've got flooding as an item on the agenda, I've discussed this with him, I think he's okay to. I'll ask him to be the first questioner on any following that item, and he agreed. Thank you. What's the next one? Right. Question on behalf of Field Lane Brick. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll do the supplementaries right at the end, because otherwise we could go backwards and forwards. So this next one is question on behalf of Field Lane, Brickfield Close, Brentford residents. I am Abigail Hardy. I'm speaking on behalf of the people of Field Lane and Brickfield Close, Brentford, where the council hopes to build new flats on top of our ceilings. We are now living in dread of how our lives are about to be wrecked. We feel like the little people who don't count when measured against the council's mantra of more homes, more homes. We must reach our target, more homes, more homes. But it's not you, our councillors, who face being plunged into a living hell. It is us. It's not you, our councillors, who face a nightmare lasting many months, perhaps years, with health and mental impact. It is us. The fear, the apprehension, is already seriously affecting our lives. Over 200 people have signed my petition against rooftop developments. We've seen how it went wrong in Witton Road, Hounslow, number 63 to 67 Witton Road. Bill, you got the reply to this?
Yeah, we've had a response from planning officers for this one.
Sorry.
All applications for new developments are assessed against our planning policies, which include policy and guidance on neighbours' living conditions. Any approval would also be subject to conditions that safeguard neighbours' living conditions. There is an understanding that the construction period of schemes can cause challenges for neighbours, and we try to manage that through the planning system in line with our policies and guidance.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll come back. We'll come back at the end, if that's okay, Ms. Hardy. Thanks. Next one is a question from John Dale. Dear councillors, people are being intimidated from visiting Brentford Dock Riverside by the partial gating, the security staff and the extra sign saying private and residents only. In effect, the rest of Brentford has been robbed of access to part of its precious history, culture, amenities and its most beautiful stretch of waterfront. After lots of noise, you have fallen silent. It's as if you have surrendered. Have you lost the Battle of Brentford Dock? Now, I didn't get an answer from residents, but Councillor Salman Shaheen has kindly agreed to respond to this one.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, John, from Brentford Today and TV, for that question. I'm always grateful for the press and their probing questions to hold us councillors to account. I'm gonna say a few words on this because I was on the planning committee when we introduced Article 4 to stop the gating of Brentford Dock, and indeed I was leading the charge on that. I mean, the first thing I do want to say is I want to row back from the language of battle. At that meeting, when I was leading that charge, I rather pretentiously quoted Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and a resident who lived in Brentford Dock accused me of trying to foment the French Revolution against them. So I do want to point out this is not a battle between Brentford Dock residents and the rest of the borough. However, if it were a battle, I think we won that one, because we did stop the gating of Brentford Dock, and I walk down there well, at least once a week, maybe twice a week I walk down there, and the fact I can walk down there is because it's not gated off. It's one of the most picturesque parts of the Thames in London, and it's absolutely fundamental that the residents across the borough and beyond have a right to walk along the paths along there. So we stopped the gating, but yes, I will concede that there are ways in which some people will feel intimidated going around there. There are a lot of signs erroneously claiming that this is a private residents-only pathway. It's not. That's not a fact in law at all. But those who don't know that could well be put off by the signs. Those who don't know that could well be put off by the security, who can be very hostile to people. I mean, I've been stopped by security whilst walking around there before, and I was told, you can't be here, you're not a resident. I said, well, I can. I can be here. I've got every right to be here. This is not it's not illegal to be walking around there if you're not a resident. And they said, don't believe everything you say, everything you hear on Brentford TV. So, you know, there is that level of intimidation. What can we do about it? That is a question. I don't know the answer, and I would love to hear from Ward Councillor Theo Dennison if he has any thoughts on what we can do about that, the signs and the security.
Oh, well, thank you, Chair. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Salman. I'm more than happy to defer to you as our next leader on this issue. It is actually in Zion Ward. And to be honest, I do have a slightly differing view on this. And I want to be quite clear. It isn't a battle, it wasn't a battle, and it shouldn't be conceived of as a battle. You know, these are residents, both on Brentford Dock and elsewhere in Brentford and elsewhere in the borough, whose rights we will wish to and will protect. And it is important for us to try and tamp down some of the rather histrionic language of John on this. It's not a battle, shouldn't be a battle. I've spoken to both Steve Curran, the leader of the council, my fellow World Councillor, and Veronica Ray from the management company at Brentford Dock Limited. There are impending additional meetings about to take place between them to try and resolve matters in a satisfactory, peaceful and consensual way. And I have every confidence that there won't be any need for you to get your sword out again, though very sharp it is, and very necessary it is at times. On this particular issue, I am very confident we'll be able to get a satisfactory solution that is satisfactory to all parties.
Hang on, later. There's other people wanted supplementaries. You can come back later. Thanks. The next question is: despite the best intentions and high standard of equipment and refurbishment, Council's digital dock in Brentford High Street has not become the busy, buzzing, entrepreneurial hub as the council hoped. It opened 4 months ago, but most days it's empty, without the lights even being switched on. Is it now time to review its future, especially the prices per desk, which range from £15 a day to £245 a month? Do you believe it still has a realistic future, and how will this be realised? I haven't got an answer. I haven't got a formal answer for you, but I'm just bear in mind the number of places that are not being occupied at the moment, or people not gone back to work at the moment. It could possibly even happen again. But we will get you a response. A written response, but so far we didn't get one today. Next question is from Jim Storer. We understand the emerging borough character and context study and design code special plan, SPD supplementary planning document will be adopted as a supplementary planning document and will be formally consulted on in autumn 2021. We'd be grateful for the following pieces of information. Dates of the consultation this autumn, indication of the dates of formal consultation on the draft SPD. We understand that a related document will be considered by Hounslow Cabinet in December. Presumably this will not preempt the outcome of subsequent consultations. What is the relationship, if any, between the character study and the work on draft vision for Brentford Town Centre master plan exercises, looked at 6 significant sites in Brentford, etc.? I'm afraid, Jim, again, we don't have a response for you on this. You'll be written to, and any response will be added to the pages for this meeting on the IBAP site at the council. Right, only 3 more to go. Blimey. Questions from Dominic West, St John's Residents Association. Twickenham Road has seen a large increase in traffic since restrictions were lifted during the pandemic, including at weekends with long queues from Bush Corner to Wortham Road and from Mogden Lane to the A316. What specific steps are officers proposing to deal with this, and what discussions have taken place with Transport for London? What discussions have also taken place with the London Borough of Richmond about introducing a bus lane from Crane Park allotments to the A316, where delays frequently occur, and when will this be implemented? Bill.
Response from traffic again. We are aware that there are issues with the operation of the traffic signals at the junctions of Mogden Lane and Walton Road. We will liaise with TfL to ask them to review the operation of signals at the above 2 junctions where excessive green time for Mogden Lane and Walton Road, Van Gogh Close may be contributing to delays on Twickenham Road. We'll update the area forum in due course on the outcome of these discussions. With regard to delays between Crane Road and the A316 and potential improvements for buses, we will liaise with LBRUT and TfL and report back at a future meeting of the area forum.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Next one, dead trees in council parks. What is the policy for the replacement of newly planted trees that have died in council parks? Are those being identified and proposals put forward for replanting? How many are there across the council's parks?
And we've had a response from GS360 on this one. The policy for replacement of dead trees that were newly planted is in relation to standard-sized trees. A standard tree has a substantial upright, this is their classification of what they call a standard tree, has a substantial upright stem, clear of lateral growths, supporting a branched crown. Failure rates attract and replacements area made as part of our planting scheme. The failure rate for whips, they then define whip, obviously a technical term, it consists of only a single slender stem without significant side branching. Apologies for the whistling on this mic, there's too many S's in that sentence. And you're doing all right. Consisting of only a single slender stem without significant side branching. The term whip usually refers to woody plants that are between 2 and 4 years old. The failure rate for these is not tracked, as it's generally accepted that there will be a failure rate, and they are normally densely planted, so it's also difficult to count and track them. There is also an element of natural selection, so that even if replanted, there will continue to be failures. Currently, the failure rate is very low, with less than 10 trees per annum being lost. We are currently working with the community with an opportunity to decrease failure rates further by involving the community in tracking problems, adopting trees and helping with watering and looking after trees. A new app called Green Talk has recently been launched, and then for more information go to a link. Obviously I can't read that out, but when the minutes are published this answer will be there with the link working.
So now you know. All right. 3, revenue from parks. How much income has been generated from commercial keep fit groups and other outdoor activities in the council's parks?
And we've had a response from the council's events team. No income has been generated from small commercial activities in parks, such as commercial keep-fit groups. The Council began exploring the introduction of a permit system for such activities in 2019. However, this piece of work was put on hold at the start of the COVID pandemic as the Council focused its efforts on responding to the impact of the pandemic. Permits for small commercial activities are now being considered again, although there are various resource and legal issues which need to be worked through before any proposals are put forward for consideration.
Right, thank you. Right, so your one supplementary question question posers. Algra, your one supplementary question, please. You got a mic for Algra?
Yes, can I ask for the written responses to be sent to us in the next few days, please, rather than having to wait for the minutes to be published a week before the next IBAF meeting? And it was interesting to see that none of the OGRA questions were included in the handout, and I wonder why.
Okay, were any questions somewhere? Okay, all right, I'm sorry, I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, all right, well, we will put the answers in.
Sorry, I was saying there's just 3 that are included in the pack, and that's it.
Okay, all right. Right, next, Abigail Hardy, what's your yeah, sorry. Yeah, we'll do our best. Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. I have to say I'm so very disappointed that Councillor Curran isn't here, as he is a Sign Ward councillor that deals with the estate that I live on. I really think that the statement that Mr. Lee actually read was insensitive, was sad, was really quite boring, and was just a major get out. I don't think the council is taking into account the living hell, the lives that this is going to affect. We have people on our estate that are blind. We have children that are autistic with high sensory issues with noise. We have elderly. We have children that have a right to play. We also should have the right to live in harmony. We have people that live at home and work at home, from home. I just really think, for the sake of 11 flats in Field Lane and Mercury all over Brentford, this is really wrong to disrupt our lives for maybe 2 years. We know what's happened in Witton Road. Now, today, I went on a little walk around our estate, the Zion estate and the Field Lane estate, and I have found you 11 properties. That's what you want to build in Field Lane. There are 3 in Field Lane that are empty. 1 has been empty for over a year. And I've also found 8 on the New Herring Close estate, which has been ready to be inhabited for many, many months, and there are still 8 houses with very needy families' needs that are actually empty. Plus, if Steve wants to get his chequebook out, like he suggested last week at the BFC Stadium, there are 2 houses for sale in Beach Avenue. Get your chequebook out quickly, because one's going up for auction on the 10th of November. That would be great. Buy that back, and then you can put a family in there too. So there you go. I've got you 11. You don't need to build in Field Lane, and I'm sure I could probably go around Brentford and find a few more, so you don't have to build in Mercury either. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Abigail Hardy. John Dale, you had a supplementary. Oh, sorry, hang on, one moment. Theo Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure that wasn't intended as an entirely rhetorical question, was it, Abby? And therefore, I think it deserves a full and proper answer. I'm very sorry that Steve and Catherine aren't here today. I was not aware that they would not be, and it is unfortunate, I think. I'm sure he would be as concerned as I am with the issues you've actually raised. And if he's not, then I'm sure he can tell you otherwise when next you meet. It is quite clear that ever since the application was submitted and approved by the Planning Committee, that various concerns made by residents have been expressed, but not adequately heard by the Council. And it's unfortunate in those circumstances that seems to have been the case. I apologise for that. on behalf of the council and my colleagues. Now, it's not up to this body to overturn the decisions of a planning committee, but it is this body's responsibility to look after the interests of the residents within our area. And of course, the planning committee, in coming to its decision, which I'm sure sought to take into account some of the issues you've actually raised, in doing so, it set a number of conditions upon which this development must be satisfied. And specifically, I'd like to make reference to conditions number 3, 6, 13 and 15, with reference to the pre-development or the pre-construction conditions that have to be satisfied before any works on the construction of this development must occur. Given that there are a number of key issues within those conditions, which are similar to the issues you've raised in terms of noise, impact on local residents, etc., I would suggest that it would be appropriate for, number one, local residents and local councillors to be informed of the actual timetable for the discharge of these 4 conditions. Secondly, that we should add, as you suggested earlier, Chair, an item on the next meeting of this committee to review the reports to discharge those conditions prior to them being discharged by the council, so that we can actually make sure that all of the issues that you have raised are dealt with appropriately and to the satisfaction of all councillors in this area. And then finally, that we invite the planning committee itself to also review the reports on those conditions, rather than have this matter dealt with under delegated authority. I think if we look carefully at the issues you've actually raised and give you an opportunity to address the planning committee on these matters in the fullness of time, we'll reach a much more satisfactory conclusion than we have at the present time. I so move.
Okay, I don't need to put. Do I need to put that to the vote? I think if you can record that, Bill. I've got Councillor Chowdhury wants to say something. Did you want to say something? Then I've got Councillor Lambert.
Not on this point, though. I just want to make a correction. Councillor Easton pointed out to me that the 3 that are in the pack are actually from the minutes of the last meeting. Therefore, there aren't any questions included in the pack. So I just thought it was important to make that distinction and correction. Thank you.
Okay, so they were in the minutes of the last meeting rather than, yeah, because I don't remember seeing them. I'm quite meticulous. I've even filed everything to in my preparation for my re-debut of this meeting. Councillor Guy Lambert on the Field Lane issue.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment because you mentioned about the council buying back former council houses. The council is, well, the council via its subsidiary, Lambton Investment 360, is buying approximately 40 properties every month at the moment. Nearly all of them are ex-council properties that are coming back onto the market, and letting them to people on the housing list at a truly affordable rate. We can't do that in Brentford because the sums don't add up. The value of properties is too high. But we can do it out in the west of the borough, and that's what we're doing. So I think it's important to understand that we're using every means that we can to try and take people off the housing list and provide them with houses at truly affordable rents. Thanks.
Come then, Councillor Dennison, number 1.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for indulging me on this matter. I think Councillor Lambert makes a very serious point about the cost of the buyback scheme. However, I'm not entirely convinced we've actually seen any costings on the business case for the scheme on Field Lane. And perhaps I could add to what I'd said earlier and actually say we should be given a copy of the business case for the development on Field Lane so we know what the cost of these 11 properties that would be constructed there would be, so we can do an appropriate comparison as to whether it is possible to actually have bought properties elsewhere instead.
Okay, thanks. And may I just add on the issue of construction management, following the very lively planning committee meeting last Thursday, where certain victories were had, which you've all heard about. The last item on the agenda was about planning enforcement and planning performance, similar. Councillor Guy Lambert, Councillor Mel Collins will recall that we did have a discussion, quite a lively discussion on considerate contractors, conditions on on builders, communication with residents and neighbours on schemes, small and large, and they have promised to officers have promised to bring back some standard conditions on that. But I do agree, because we've done it, and Dominic West and Patrick McMahon over there, we did scrutinise the construction management scheme for numbers 1 to 5 St John's Road, the old Moor cycle scheme, and we because in tight sites, in sites that are controversial, in sites that are likely to throw up problems, we do need to examine this. And I would encourage everybody who's faced with a development in their neighbourhood to be able to look at these. And we did look at it with Osterley White Green Residents Association, the Gillette South development there as well, their construction management. And we found a way to prevent trucks going down the whole of Northumberland Avenue, for example, during construction. So you have this power, I think, but it does require a bit of reading. It does require a little bit of discussion, and bringing your ward councillors, or the ward councillors who will listen, bringing your ward councillors on board. If I can leave it at that. John Dale, your turn, mate.
Given that I did move it, you do actually have a choice as the chair of the committee to simply accept what I suggested we should do as far as Field Lane is concerned. Can I take it, since you have not demurred, that you have agreed that we should be doing these four things that I suggested?
Remind us, and then let's take a vote on it if need be.
The first one was to inform residents and councillors of the expected timetable for the discharge of conditions, add an item on the future agenda of this body to review those conditions, and invite the planning committee to also review those conditions and give the residents an opportunity to make an input, and finally to get a costing or business case for the development on Field Lane, so we can have a look at that. I don't see why not. She was asking whether we could include Mercury House.
I broadly support this. I'm just thinking about the second part of your your motion there, PO. We've not got another one of these until February, and if we're looking at if we're looking at moving things on, I don't know. You tell me. Is that too late? Will that hold it up? And have these conditions been agreed already? I don't know.
That's the point of the first issue, was to actually inform residents and councillors of the expected timetable for the discharge of these conditions. I'm at your mercy. You're quite right. There is only the one other meeting of this committee before May of next year, in which case we might never be here in the first place. But I'm more than happy to refer it to your better judgment in terms of the appropriate time for dealing with these things, so long as we live by the spirit of it, and either the planning committee or this committee gets a chance to have a look at those conditions before they are approved, and they should not be approved under delegated prior to that.
Well, as a ward councillor, it's you have a prerogative, if you like, to call these draft conditions in as well. But look, I will. Is there a seconder for this? Yeah, okay, Councillor Reeson, and so you've heard those in favour of Councillor Dennison's motion on this. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Certainly, I'm doing summarised versions each time, but hopefully they will be consistent. The first part was to inform residents and councillors of the expected timetable for the discharge of conditions 3, 6...
Theo, a bit slower for our for our committee administrator, please.
Sorry, Bill.
Would I be able to have the written version of that tomorrow,
if you
Councillor,
can read it, you certainly can.
I've got it spot on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the first one was to inform residents and councillors of the expected timetable for the discharge of conditions 3, 6, 13 and 15 relating to Field Lane and Mercury House. Add an item on the first available meeting of the IBAF, subject to the discretion of the Chair, so that we can maybe review those conditions, invite the Planning Committee to discuss and assess whether those conditions are being satisfactorily fulfilled, and give residents an opportunity to express their view, and finally to ask for a business case for the development on Field Lane, if you wish, Mercury House, so that we can actually see what the full cost of actually doing this development is compared to the cost of buying alternative properties elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. You all right with that? You got that, Guy? Okay. Right, those in favour. So therefore that's carried unanimously. Thank you. There you go. Well done, Ms. Hardy. It does work sometimes. Mr. Dale, your supplementary, mate.
Talks are going on at Brentford Dock. Are you specifically asking for the removal of the intimidating signage, the intimidating fencing, and for the security guards to stop intimidating people who visit them?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, John. I'm not party to the discussions themselves. They are going on between, I think, Councillor Steve Curran and Veronica Ray and others. I'm sure he'll be able to report back at a future event what the content of those discussions are. However, I spoke to both of them barely 2 weeks ago, and they were both satisfied that they were looking forward to a consensual agreement as far as the Brentford Dock was concerned, and they certainly both seemed very happy that they were in prospect of coming up with a solution that would be satisfactory for all. What can I say, John? I'm not party to those discussions. If I was, I'd tell you exactly what I'd said.
All right, thank you. Dominic West, do you have a supplementary, my friend?
Council's trees, and I note with regret 2 years after I asked the same question, and it's a pity the leader isn't here, that not a penny has been raised from all these groups that have been making lots of money in our parks during the pandemic and continue to do so. And that's a real disappointment, considering that the scale of charges for all these facilities was actually approved by the Borough Council, I think, in April 2020. So I hope perhaps members you can raise that to the attention of the Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for Leisure, who I think should also be aware of this decision. My main question, though, really is regarding my question on Twickenham Road. Now,
you're getting two, mate. You're getting two here, aren't you?
Well,
because you haven't drawn breath, is it?
They're all sort of wrapped into one. Twickenham Road, as many will know, is bearing the brunt of a lot of traffic at the moment, and continues to do so. And it seems to be the forgotten road in our area. Over the last weekend, there was some major roadworks. Thames Water decided to dig a hole at the junction of St John's Road. This was at the time when Brentford were playing Chelsea and there was no train service on the Hounslow Loop. Traffic was so bad it was turning back beyond the A316 to Twickenham, and the 267s, 2 in 3 267s were diverted, so people were not able to go to the hospital and were not able to do their trips locally. I would like the council to address seriously the issue of Twickenham Road and to basically have a plan to deal with major disruptions. Now, I know that we are all at the mercy of the utilities, and I don't blame the council for Thames Water digging the hole, and to Satbeer's credit, he actually made sure that the hole was filled 3 days later. But clearly it's not good enough when they dig a hole on a Saturday and they don't fill it until the Monday, and the area is at a complete standstill. The other issue we had is we've had the Amherst and the Teesdale closures. Now, why keep those roads shut when Twickenham Road is at a complete standstill? It's absolute nonsense. Those closures were opposed by 84% of the people who live in those roads. So really, I think we've got to revisit the whole area. We've got to treat Twickenham Road seriously, because it's a hospital route, it's a bus route, and we can't let Twickenham Road be the bad neighbour of the whole borough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't bad, was it? After 45 minutes. But we've got a lot off our chests. Right, so next item. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, questioners. Thank you. We pass on our thanks to those who gave us some really valid responses. Next one, local flooding update. Now let me introduce this. So we had the discharge on the Duke of Northumberland River back in January. Councillor Shaheen took up a lot of the issues there, particularly the mess that was left in Silverhall Park. And I know friends of St John's Gardens had the same issue with the waste reaching the lawns of St John's Gardens, even though there was denial from Thames Water there. And then a little bit later on, we did, and I know particularly in Austin and Spring Grove Ward, where we do have a number of basements in the older part of Spring Grove, and a lot of those got flooded, and with sewage coming up through the pipes into the voids there. We are a local flood authority. A local flood authority, so we manage some of that, and also we've got we've had some contribution. But at this meeting we had the Guy Lambert was there, Salman Shaheen, myself, Ruth Cadbury MP, and we talked about what Thames Water do. We talked about what the Environment Agency does. And we talked about fatbergs. There's a lot of fatbergs going on in our borough. But anyway, who we've got today, unfortunately we can't bring you our contingency planning people who look after this. A lot of them were busy on a couple on leave, and a lot of them were busy on the smoke without fire down at Paragon today. But I've got the venerable Satbir Gill and rookie, venerable Sabil Khan. Satbir from Hounslow Highway, Sabil Khan from London Borough of Hounslow, PFI. If you want to give us 10 minutes on this maximum, and then we've got Mr. Hunt who'll ask a question, and then perhaps we'll move on.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, evening councillors, evening residents. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having us, actually, I should say. Just to reiterate, Satbir and I are covering for Tom Palmer and Catherine Alderers, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately. I've got a briefing from Catherine covering a couple of specific incidents and some general update, which I'll try to rattle through as quickly as I can. So regarding the 12th of July flooding that occurred in the borough, particularly in the Isleworth and Brentford area, we experienced almost a month's worth of rainfall on that particular day. It caused by a mixture of hydraulic overload, because the Thames Water prepared based on Met warnings, and the event was yellow, although it was much more severe, and it was also caused by a lot of blockages. Thames Water are delivering pieces of work to address this hydraulic overload, and the environmental bill going through Parliament in the next week or so, I believe, is requiring wet wipes to be flushable to help with the fatberg issue that you mentioned there, Chair. Thames Water actions, they took actions to improve predicting when the event will happen and getting crews on site and more prepared and quickly as well. This was found to have worked at a following rain event on the 26th of July. They're working in improving their call handling capacity with a new system late 2021 expected to improve that response and ensure emergency lines are connected for future use. And finally, they've expressed an interest in sponsoring a page in the quarterly Hounslow Matters magazine that goes out to all residents, specifically on what they're doing. With regards to a Thames Water review, there are two reviews happening there, one internal, one independent. The internal one will cover the internal response and call centre issues, asset failures, and other things that didn't work as well as they wished. The independent review, which is going to be led by an independent expert group, which will find its results by December 2021. Thames Water also remapping radar rainfall data and converting that to different periods to establish severity and basis of probability. That's also in progress. Just to quickly touch on the north of the Duke of Northumberland flooding that you mentioned, also, Chair, it happened in January 21. That was sewage flooding by Mill Platt and Silverhall Park due to unprecedented build-up of between 10 and 12 tonnes of grit at Mogden, which block the inlet screens. And the inlet screens are there to prevent debris from entering. So the wastewater backed up and unfortunately discharged into the river after a culvert was breached. Thames Water, in collaboration with the EA, created a follow-up report to investigate further. Thames Water also resealed the culvert and are working on a long-term engineering solution and have renewed their incident management process to prevent a reoccurrence. There's been a lot of incidents and reports of Windmill Road, some specific issues there. That's being investigated by two routes. The first one by EA funding, which is to protect more properties from flooding. Metis have found and identified 225mm pipe in Whitestyle Road that was assessed by Storm Geomatics in connection to Windmill Road, but couldn't prove anything due to heavy silt at the junction of the unidentified system. The system does not show this particular pipe on a Thames Water data set, nor is it a Hounslow Highways asset, i.e. a council asset. So there's some investigation happening there. The second part of that investigation on Windmill Road is through the Thames Water funding, which is to reduce sewer capacity concerns, and we are putting this forward as an application to the upcoming steering group. Just a couple of other things, and I will rattle through this quickly. There are 3 areas currently being run feasibility studies on in this particular area forum. That's the Drive in Isleworth, Smallbury Green Primary School in Isleworth, and the Green School in Isleworth. There are 4 other locations in this area that are being investigated and with the likelihood of being put forward as part of the programme. One is Windmill Road, Whitestyle Road, which is our top priority. Cubridge Road, which is another issue, Orchard Road and Boston Gardens. How these are chosen is effectively based on reports, and I know that's one of the citizens' questions as well. So I would recommend just report whenever you can, however you can, whenever something happens. And finally, the Flood Incident Reporting Survey. It's important to clarify what you mentioned as well, Chair. We are the lead London Flooding Authority. We have duties as a coordination body between Hounslow Highways and Thames Water with the Environmental Agency to manage floods, flood and flood risks. Really important that residents report flooding either to the flooding email or on the online portal, as this is how we record areas that will need investigating. You can do this on our website, and there is a link to the survey as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I've reported a few on my in Osley and Spring Grove ward, particularly the lake that appears at the Grove and Spring Grove Road near the fire station. I think we should highlight that consultation address. It's a few questionnaires, a few questions there on the questionnaire that says where does it occur and how does it occur and have you got any pictures? Theo Dennison, you had your hand up, and then Guy Lambert.
Yeah, it's just a simple question. Maybe you know the answer, Sibyl. If you don't, then maybe get back to me. As I recall, when Reynolds Mill was being proposed quite a number of years ago now, very strong protestations were made by local residents explaining that there was a lack of capacity in terms of surface water and sewerage in that area. Would you just like to say whether or not they were right?
I'm not aware of that particular planning comments that were put through. We do recognise there is an issue on Windmill Road, and we are working towards getting that solution as well. And my colleagues involved in that strategic partnership, Satbear and I are included in that, but led by Catherine and Tom, are fully aware of those as well.
It's just that, I mean, you were making reference to how Thames Water were caught out by the fact they were looking at the expectations of what the weather conditions would be. Well, to be honest, some of us, in fact, I think all of us know that there are big weather conditions coming in our direction over the next 10, 20, 50 years. And that might be a better indicator sometimes than somewhat outdated assessment criteria that are currently being used. And certainly when we have a pre-existing condition in a particular area, you can pretty well guarantee that these sort of things are going to happen, and therefore waiting for them to happen and then correcting them is actually probably not the most sensible way of doing it. And I was just wondering if you could just encourage on our behalf the triumvirate of worthy persons and organisations to perhaps address some of these issues more swiftly.
Absolutely, Councillor. Noted, and I will take that back. Thank you.
Guy Lambert and then Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to highlight that during the July and the August or whatever it was floods, we had very severe problems in a lot of different places in my ward and also in Sion ward, including where I live, where the basement was flooded, all our lifts were put out of order, and they were out of order for several weeks. 8 Cubridge Road, it was worse because I believe they lost all their electricity and their Wi-Fi for some time, as well as having severe flood damage to lifts. But we also had problems in White Star Road, in Windmill Road, in Boston Gardens, all very severe and all not new. And now, my understanding from conversations that I've had with you and Satbir is that there is some kind of funding around for Thames Water to do some sort of fundamental improvements to the hydraulic system, or whatever it's called. When is this going to happen? I mean, how many more times are we going to be flooded before we get some action on that?
Thanks, Councillor. We are having discussions with Thames Water, with Mattis, who are our consultants, and we are working together. So London Borough of Hounslow Highways, Thames Water, we are working together, and it's a very good story, that we are working together to resolve the issues here. So at present, for your specific area, you mentioned Windmill Road, Whitestyle Road, Cubridge Road, we have submitted application to Thames Water for their approval. So once that we receive the approval, then we'll start the feasibility study. And we are doing feasibility study at present on 3 locations, as Councillor Lukey mentioned, the Drive, Smallbury Green Primary School, and the Green School. So, and we will keep you updated on the progress, and there will be a full consultation process, when we implement the scheme also. So, we'll keep you updated of the progress, when we get the approvals, when the feasibility study starts, and when the implementation comes here. Right?
Sorry, just to be clear, when do we expect to hear some, the first knockings of some action on this?
Actually, yeah, so that will be what mitigation we are going to implement there. So whether it will be a surge scheme, so where the tanks will be to store the water, or whether it's going to be a permeable surface we are going to propose. So the feasibility study will direct us to those options, and then we will do the option appraisal and we'll go for the best option, what is best for the area.
I'm concerned when, at the moment, whenever there's flooding, you are to blame in the public's eyes, because the public thinks that it's because you haven't cleaned the gutters. And between you tell me, and I believe you, that that's not the case, that that the problem is under the ground. But we need to get that. We need to get that message out there so that people understand that this is a more fundamental issue than sweeping the gutters. Okay. And B, get some visibility of when we're actually going to have some kind of fix to some of this.
Councillor, can you get a briefing note out to the Brentford and the Sion ward? Well, in fact, to all the councillors in the ward, just let us know what's happening in terms of these bids. But also, Sabil, will you on the back of that, will you liaise with our vast communications team on getting something, finding a way of getting this out? There was a suggestion. There was a suggestion from Mr. Hunt. Now, I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but and I think there was a suggestion at our meeting with Thames Water and the Environment Agency that we should put something in Hounslow Matters. I know the editor-in-chief isn't here tonight, but if we can find a way of getting that in there, Mandy Skinner, if we can find a way of getting that in there in the next issue, so that people are aware. Because when I was coming back from the Spring Grove Residents Association meeting last night, and I saw the flooding on London Road again, that you get outside the fire station and Harvard Road this time. People want to know, I think, and we're not telling them. Let's see if we can get something in the next issue. Mel Collins, you had your hand up. Sorry, mate.
I did. Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm absolutely horrified that we're here as an area forum and we're actually being told that you've got to bid for money to actually to rectify a fundamental problem. That absolutely staggers me. Guy has mentioned White Stile and Windmill, which has been a perpetuating problem, and each time we have a really heavy burst of rain, so the situation is getting worse and worse. And I particularly would like to concentrate on Kew Bridge Road. I've been a councillor now for a very long time, and I don't know how many emails and phone calls I've made regarding the flooding on Kew Bridge Road. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And folks standing at those two sets of bus stops there, the 267 and the 65, just to pinpoint it, when you've had a shower of rain, they get absolutely soaked. And you're actually telling us this evening that you're going to have to bid for money to actually get Thames Water to do the job that they're supposed to do without having to bid the money. And whilst I'm on the subject, I've also reported numerous times about the vile stench that surrounds that area as well. And nobody can give... That's quite enough of that, thank you very much. Who's higher in the league? They were lucky. Sorry, folks. The stench there is absolutely vile, and I do get replies, but I don't get replies that have got anything substantial to say, except that the words are, "We are looking into it," Councillor Collins. When are you going to look into it to give us a satisfactory reply? So it's those two areas there are coupled together, because my good colleague Guy has taken care very, very nicely of all that stuff north of the A4M4 corridor. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I think that will probably come out with the briefing, the urgent briefing that we're all going to get on that, and that would include the finance. But if the specific areas, if you can get back to Councillor Collins on that, can I just briefly offer this to residents, Mr. Hunt? If you've heard a few things, just a couple of questions, if that's okay, and bear in mind what we talked about earlier on when we will get some more stuff to you. Oh no, he's got a plan.
I will be brief.
Do you want somebody to hold it? I can
if you can hold the...
we go this way, so it will not be...
Right.
Yeah.
I have been trying for 3 months to get some information from... This map, some of you may have seen in Metro 3 months ago.
Leave it to me, just you talk. I will hold it. Just you talk. Okay. You talk it. All right. There you go.
Right. This map was published 3 months ago in the Metro. It was reprinted 2 weeks later in the Evening Standard. It demonstrates that the flooding is an issue all across London, or at any rate, that part of London which is close to the Thames. Now, there are various maps around. If anybody's read the 2.5-page briefing paper in the pack tonight, they will see that it is stated that Thames Water are working with the Met Office on producing died,
I'm very sorry that there's nobody here to show us what they're doing. Anyway, that's one map. It appeared in the Metro and in the Evening Standard. There are other maps on the Environmental Agency website. And when I look at that, I can put in my postcode, and I think it actually asks me for my house number as well. And then it offers me several maps. And I can see the extent of flooding, and the depth of flooding, and the velocity of flooding. Now, it tells me that I am low risk. I haven't seen what low risk is considered to be, but against that, it appears to show me that my front garden will be dry. I don't understand this because my house is then going to be subject to between 300 and 900 millimetres of water, or in old money, 1 to 3 feet. But it's only low risk, whatever that means. Now, low risk historically was frequently once in 100 years, something like that. But many people have said repeatedly in recent months that with climate change, we're going to expect warmer weather, more moisture in the atmosphere, more rain and more extreme events, such as 1 month's rain in a single day, as happened in July. So there are various bodies working on maps. They've all got their own. There needs to be some joined up thinking what all the data is, and recognition as well that it's not just Hounslow's problem. Now, in fact, you can see them, you can't see the map here very well, but you can see there is a map. You get the gist. If you see the inscription at the top, I took that to City Hall last week because I have had no reply from my councillors for 3 months, despite persistent attempts at reminding them. Similarly, from City Hall. Now, I see in the paper that Sadiq Khan does claim to be doing something, but I am expletive if I know what, because he won't tell me. I shall finish in 1 minute. So, in 1 minute, I will not read you the summary, which probably goes over several pages, which I emailed to Kay Duffy 2 days ago. However, as I say, I've been trying for 3 months to get information, and I've had silence. So I should like to read you the last 4 sentences from my email. I've heard nothing from anyone, neither members' casebook, nor any of my councillors who've had the courtesy to notify me about Thursday's area forum. But perhaps they believe that it will not be informative. Well, it hasn't. I mean, these 2 gentlemen here have barely said anything beyond what's in the briefing paper. I'm sure that's not their fault, but why could we not have had other people here to say something intelligent? Sorry, I don't mean to insult you at all.
Okay.
The councillor with the climate emergency portfolio has submitted apologies, although of course I do not know why. My final sentence: what service standards does Hounslow have regarding timescales for replies from councillors?
Okay, thank you. We have, unless you're the leader of the council, when you get two working days. If you're not the leader of the council, you get 7 working days. If members do put in your a request for information. I do apologise. We did have that meeting, and it was our intention to have the flood people, flood officers here, and they have presented briefs. These guys do the practical stuff. But let's, as I said earlier on, we'll get you the information when she's back, and even Catherine Orpers, and she's very good. When she's back, we'll get you the, we can even get you via your councillors, whoever they may be. I can't remember who your ward councillor, what road do you live in? Okay. We'll get one of your councillors into, we'll get one of your councillors for there to broker a meeting. Any other questions? Yes, I see. Briefly, we're running out of time. We've got 3 more things. Yeah.
Couple of sentences, Chair. Talk about the floods on the ground, but what about the floods on the guttering on the rooftops of the flats? Like the resident that I live over there, the guttering has been all throughout the years, it's been blocked. Now inside the house is a council property, dam and all these kinds of things, and rising it. We are talking about the flood on the floor, but in the second floor or the highest things where the guttering has been blocked all throughout the years, and it is causing, health and safety hazards for the residents. Thank you.
Okay, let's report it. Please report any of these things to your, to housing, and if housing don't deal with it, report it to your ward councillors. I'm getting Councillor Collins saying it's the first he's heard of it. But gentleman at the back there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Don Hayward, and I live on the junction of Windmill Road and White Star Road. And in fact, I've lived there for over 35 years. And we've had regular flooding throughout that time. It's roughly once a year.
The head. Just release the bottom.
I don't need that. Although the 12th of July was quite exceptional, it wasn't the only time we've had flooding. It happens quite regularly. So thank you very much, you guys, because you came to visit us and hear our concerns a couple of days after the last events. But it's by no means a unique event. We've had it over the years many, many times, and we are getting a bit fed up with it. So I'm glad to hear, thank you, that something is specifically being done about Windmill Road. Obviously, the very next day after the 12th of July, Germany was virtually wiped out by floods, which makes us, look very lucky indeed, to be honest, in comparison. So, but thanks for looking into that for us. I do eagerly hope to hear from you about what exactly is being planned to occur, because I understand it's a systemic problem. It's got nothing to do with wet wipes and fatbergs. It's that the pipes are too small somewhere downstream, and that could be expensive. So thank you for looking into that, and I hope to hear from you soon.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hayward. Gentlemen, thank you. Let's move on. We've got Rob Heslop. We're talking about public transport. Very, very briefly, Rob, we've all read your report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. There's more summaries, obviously, in the agenda pack. So firstly, just to report back on the recent South Western Railways consultation for the December 2022 timetable and their proposed sort of changes in principle to the routes. The main thing I'd like to highlight that affects the Hounslow Loop really is the loss of off-peak services between Hounslow and Waterloo will actually terminate in Twickenham in the future. So we raised that as a concern and obviously affects people who want to travel into Hounslow. So we've raised a number of concerns and objections with regard to service levels. We want to retain the current levels of service on the Hounslow Loop and services that affect the residents of the borough and visitors to the borough as well. The second point that I'd just like to mention is that the installation of lifts at Osterley Station, which were operational from the 6th of October, which is good news. TfL will be launching a consultation later in the year with regard to particularly disabled public transport users to give feedback on where further step-free improvements can be made. Very briefly, at Isleworth Station, we have a number of projects ongoing at Isleworth Station. The first one is the proposals to introduce lifts to the platforms. Network Rail and South Western Railways were successful in a bid to the Department for Transport back in 2019 to introduce lifts. Network Rail have been progressing that. You'll see in the report that the timetable is set out there, and it's proposed that that will be in place at the end of 2023. We're also discussing reuse of the station building, both the ground floor and first floor. Again, discussing this with South Western Railways to bring the building back into use. There's a proposal for improved cycle access from the station car park to St John's Road, and it's hoped that this will be there's a detailed design that's been put together, and it's hoped that we will get approval to start construction in the new year. And finally, pigeon proofing of the London Road Bridge. There was some work done last year by Network Rail to repair the pigeon proofing over the footways on both sides of the road. That's been completed. We're aware that there are some issues with that, and that's been reported to Network Rail, who have raised that with their contractors. And we are now looking to introduce a second phase of pigeon proofing that would cover the carriageway as well. And I'll leave it there, Chair.
All right, thank you, Robert. Bear in mind, all the work's going on down at Isleworth Station. They are often funded by London Borough of Hounslow, or the real-time signs at St John's Road, at the St John's Road exit, outside the station at London Road, paid for by Hounslow. The cycle works, paid for by Hounslow. Pigeon proofing, paid for by Hounslow. Network Rail, all they can come up with is, is ruining the Great British Rail logo. But they're very slow on wiping out graffiti on the bridge there at St John's Road and London Road. So thank you for that. Thank you for that update, and we keep pursuing it. At least we've got some money out of South Western Railways to do a feasibility and do some surveys on the station, and that's good. And the access for all for the lift money. But again, London Borough of Hounslow is going to probably cough up about at least a third, maybe half of the lift funding. Sorry, that's my little chair's rant, but also it's both there and. Both platform 1 there and platform 1 at Sire Lane is in Lossenden and Spring Grove Ward. Councillor Shaheen.
Thank you very much for that. I just want to pick up on one point, which is the cuts, the proposed cuts to the South West Railway services. They were when they first began consulting around the cuts on the Twickenham to Waterloo line. I was astounded that they said that they were consulting local councillors. They never wrote to me as councillor for Isleworth, and Twickenham, when I lived on Twickenham Road in Isleworth, that was my local station. Twickenham Station is absolutely essential for the thousands of residents who live in the south of Isleworth, for whom Isleworth Station is too far a walk. So first of all, I have to fault them on their consultation, but when I heard of it eventually, not through them, I was very quick to write in with my objections to those cuts, and Ruth Cadbury has also written in with objections to those cuts. But the thing that strikes me is we had a similar issue a couple of years ago when TfL were proposing to cut the 110 bus route, which goes between Ivybridge Estate and the West Middlesex Hospital. We in the ward got together a campaign with hundreds of petition signatures, which ultimately led to TfL preserving that route. But you can do that with TfL because it is a public asset. You can't do that with South West Railway. So sorry to get political, but I think it's a clear sign that we need to renationalise the railways.
The N word, Mel Collins.
Yeah, I would echo that last sentiment, but that's not what we're here for, unfortunately. The loop line. I think everybody knows that I'm part of the establishment of Brentford Football Club. But in all seriousness, we've already seen with the last Saturday's game against Chelsea, and this week we have a game against Leicester, and there are at least another 3 Sunday games planned, and it is just pure bedlam. And I hope, like us ward councillors, that you have made your strongest representations. I mean, Cubridge Station is absolutely sort of, I'm going to say not on top of, because it's underneath. It's underneath the stadium itself. And it really is total bedlam because of their just incompetence in consulting. And so I'd hope that we can still keep the pressure on to actually get them at least to think about changing their mind for the sanity of ordinary men and folk in the street that are not football fans that are getting embroiled in fans going to and from the match.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. I mean, I omitted to say that I also wrote on this and responded to the consultation and did speak to the Windsor Line Passengers Association too. I mean, and the Sunday service, improving the Sunday service on the loop is vital, particularly for the games at Legoland and also the potential impact of the ULEZ there at the north and south circular roads. In fact, I've probably got the most hits on my blog when I put that up there. Just any questions from out there? Christine, and who else? Asif again. Christine.
Just to say, obviously delighted to see the programme for the lifts going in at Isleworth Station, and also the result of the surveys for the building at Isleworth Station. Could we have some assurance, please, that we will have regular reports to make sure that both of these are kept on track? I mean, the one we've got a programme for, but over the reuse of the station building, it's all very, very vague, and I just don't want it to fall into abeyance.
I can try and guarantee that. I mean, between myself, it's one of my projects there. The access to the plan for IBAP. But we've been nursing the London Road the last 5 years, and we have made some improvements there. And between yourselves, I know you were instrumental in that and getting Network Rail down. We cleared many years of graffiti off the brick bridge on St John's Road, and the St John's Residents Association is very active on this. So we will not fail. We've come quite a way when you consider we've come quite a way on improving access to Isleworth Station, particularly through Sidmouth Avenue. It's quite a route through Sidmouth Avenue, the back of that to through Reynolds Way, and we have won some Section 106 from the 2 developments there at St John's Road and Reynolds Way. Asif, quickly.
Yes, very quickly. Just a couple of words in a sentence. Also, I would like to draw your attention, Robert. 2010 Accessibility Equality Laws. Your attention to the Brentford Station, where the lifts are out of order and not accessible by the disabled people, those who are on the wheelchairs and those who have the disabilities. So may kindly draw some attention towards that, because 2022, this borough is about to claim to be the most diverse borough in London. And I hope all of the representatives and you officials are aware and manage to do the things along with us, and we support you for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As always, as we say to people who complain that police aren't about when crime's out, report it. Report the flooded roofs, report the lifts out of order. Right, thank you very much, Rob. We might as well move on to the next one before we run out of time completely. The next one, if I can ask, if I can just jump the agenda a bit and get Michelle Hutchinson in, which is I can't remember what item number was it. Item number 7 on grant funding, and obviously she'll be brief. But let's see how we get on with that, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will keep it brief. So my name is Michelle Hutchinson. I'm one of the Thriving Communities grant managers. I'm here to talk about the Thriving Communities grant that we have, especially our brand new stream of funding called the Your Neighbourhood grant, which community groups, organisations and residents, they don't have to be a constituted group, can come up with an idea with backing from your local councillor for a grant of up to £1,000. We're looking at priorities around making the environment greener, responding to local needs, improving health and well-being, and increasing community engagement. So each ward has £3,000 per ward for this financial year. We're taking in applications now up until the 1st of March 2022. You might think, oh, that's ages away, but actually it's not. It's going to quickly snap and we're there. So if you have an idea, if you have a community organisation that you want to do something with, talk to your local councillor, talk to me. We've got all the leaflets here. We're always up for a chat in the Thriving Communities team. Alongside the Your Neighbourhood grant, we also have 3 other pots of funding, which I will just briefly touch on. We do have the small grant, which is up to £1,000, and we're taking applications up until the 1st of March 2022. And again, that's for groups of residents. They don't have to be a constituted group. Community organisations and voluntary organisations. We've already funded 23 projects from the small grant fund. We have the revenue round 2 that does close on Monday the 1st of November at 9 a.m. and that is for constituted groups, so community organisations and voluntary organisations for a revenue project of up to £25,000. We have a capital fund, which is very, very exciting, and that can be for any community capital project that you might want to do. You don't have to be a community organisation. You could be a resident who has an idea that wants to improve their space, improve their community. Send your ideas in to us and we can get the ball rolling. And then we can start having those conversations with teams. I know I'm already working with Brentford Voice. I can see Jim over there, which is lovely. And it's great. So it's a real community project that we're doing. And it's all about engagement. It's all about working in partnerships with our residents, with the councillors and with community organisations and voluntary groups. So that was a whistle-stop tour. If you do want to have a conversation with me, we've got our lovely leaflets here. We're on the website. Please give me a call. I'm quite happy to come and visit. So that's me. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Michelle. I won't include councillors because they've had it exposed. Anything from people in the audience. Want to ask questions to Michelle. Again, go on.
Thank you very much. I'm very enthusiastic. I believe in the community. I believe in the civic sense, and that's why I'm passionate about it. The property that I live, just on the Clifton Road, there is a huge space that is a potential for the local vegetables or kind of a place for the community that they can come and do these things. As compared on an A4, that was a rooftop garden. I was saying that, hang on a minute, there are a lot of space on the ground available. and that is for the community. And as you have mentioned it, that there is a project, I'm more than happy to invite my fellow 3 councillors and you as well, and I'm passionate, and we also input into it, and let's leave something for our community and to make it for all of us. Thank you.
That sounds perfect. I'll take your details after the meeting, and then I can be in touch with you to discuss the project. Yeah.
And you write the bid, Asif, all right? And you know, you'll get help to do it, but it's good to have an idea. But the part of this is participation as well from residents to put their ideas on paper and bid. Look, thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for being patient. Thank you everybody for being patient so far tonight. We have whistled through quite a lot. We've got the next one is our friends from Brentford Voice. If you I think that's it, isn't it? Brentford Voice next. If you'd like to perch on these chairs, this table in the middle there, we haven't got any name plates for you, Martin and Jim, and then how's this going to work? Who's going to click the presentation? Come, how's it going? Oh, Gary's got it. Okay, right. Some of these slides are in the agenda pack, but did we talk 10 minutes? Did we say 10 minutes? You worked that one out, or what?
I think that's what you said, Tony. Yeah, we'll try and get it within the 10 minutes anyway.
All right. Okay. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Chair. This is a presentation from Brentford Voice. We're focusing on an issue that we're very concerned about, and we've titled it The Changing Face of Brentford. Brentford continues to experience great change, and the pace of this change will increase over the next few years. However, we believe that this can be a positive thing for our community and that it presents many opportunities. We put together this presentation to share our concerns with you and to explore how we can all seek to manage the change that will affect our daily lives. In recent decades, Brentford has experienced high levels of housing growth, and these will accelerate over the next 10 years. We've mapped potential future May developments in Brentford with some numbers which provide a very clear picture of the substantial growth in housing coming that we believe will have a major impact on our town. As you can see, we've put some numbers together, which Jim Storer, who heads our planning group, has kindly put together. And I think they're quite telling in terms of the predictions going forward. Obviously, the one that we're particularly interested in is we don't know the growth in population, but we know there's going to be a substantial, but not as high as the growth in the number of homes. Sorry, get back. So why are these levels of growth so high? We all know that national housing targets are set by the government, and within London, the Mayor is responsible for distributing these targets. The housing target for the next 10 years for the whole of the Borough of Hounslow is about 1,800 homes per annum, and Brentford's contribution to this target will be about 33% of that total. We have a housing crisis. I don't know if you can see these, but we put together these visuals which show where the major housing sites in and around Brentford town centre are, which I'm sure you're probably aware of some. And it also maps out ones that are coming forward as well. This is in the town centre alone, but we've looked at it on a wider view because we view Brentford West and Brentford East as part of our town as well. These are the sites that we know are working within the centre of our town. There's a question mark against the Heidelberg site, but we've had a pre-meeting with the Fairview, the developers at the Heidelberg site this morning, and they've confirmed that the numbers they'll be looking at would be about 350. So it's a considerable amount in and around the town centre alone. We've also looked at the housing sites in East Brentford, which include obviously the A4 and the opportunity area, and I think you can see there, obviously most people are aware of what's going on around the football stadium, but when you start looking at these numbers together, the cumulative effect is pretty huge. We've also identified the housing sites within West Brentford as well. However, Brentford Voice wishes we'd want to see new homes that meet local housing needs and which are built to the highest standards of design and sustainability. We do believe that with this development, opportunities are be coming forward, and hopefully with the funds to invest in the local area. Supporting a wonderful community is a very key part to Brentford Voice's aims and objectives. Such high levels of growth pose considerable challenges, but they also offer the opportunities to provide those services and facilities that meet local needs and contribute towards a good quality of life. Government cuts to local authority funding have been greatly exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, but very substantial development-related funds are and will be available. We argue that receipts arising in Brentford from community infrastructure levy should be more directly applied to the benefit of our community. The challenges. We've drafted an environmental vision for Brentford. This focuses upon the challenges on issues such as climate change, air quality, transport, and waste reduction. I think we've already seen tonight from some of the earlier items that we know that the infrastructure is under stress already, and I think with those numbers that you've seen up there, it's going to be further under stress going forward. So the vision will be the subject of a separate community consultation in the very near future. Brentford Voice will strive to ensure that social and physical infrastructure is provided for our community to develop the richness of our social lives and to assist in the post-pandemic recovery. We very strongly believe that growth at these levels must be accompanied by investment in physical and social infrastructure. This must go beyond the relatively narrow remit of land use planning to embrace all those facilities that will strengthen the community that is Brentford. We run out. Management change. We support the principles of the 15-minute neighbourhood, but to be successful, there is need to coordinate the provision of a wide range of physical and social infrastructure. This includes adequate transport, affordable housing, a thriving local economy, and an education sector, green and blue space, health facilities, and arts and culture facilities. I'll come back to that one in a minute. This management of change, we can do very little to affect the future levels of housing growth. However, we can press for the management of change and the development of our community's sense of social cohesion, pride and place and shared values. On the planning front, Hounslow have commissioned Allies and Morrison to prepare a vision for the Brentford Town Centre, a character and design study and a master planning exercise. To date, despite a number of workshops, we are dismayed by the consultants' apparent reluctance to take on board the concerns of the community. Other consultants have been commissioned by Hounslow. Catapult have been engaged to develop a net zero 15-minute neighbourhood project, while land use consultants, LUC, have been retained to prepare a green and blue infrastructure strategy for the borough. We're concerned that these commissions appear to have been carried out with little or any cross-fertilisation of ideas. So we actually think that now it's time for action speaking louder than words. As part of the Council's work around COVID-19 recovery, they have reviewed how they currently engage with residents. Brentford Voice have yet to see any tangible evidence of the success of this approach. Engaging with officers at Hounslow is generally hard work, although we have very helpful and apolitical working relationships with local councillors and with some officers. However, LBH are not alone, and Brentford Voice are aware that we as a group need to engage more effectively with our community and to be more inclusive. To that end, we will strive to ensure that social and physical infrastructure is provided for our community to develop the richness of our social lives and assist in the post-pandemic recovery. Brentford Voice have a bit of a mantra, which we kind of stole from a well-known TV programme. We've adapted it to people just do something. And to that end, we've got projects that we work on to kind of support all the things that we've just laid out. These are just a few of the projects that we've been, I mean, obviously during the pandemic, we've been limited to our activities of what we can actually be doing, but we have been working away in the background, addressing the challenges that face our community, and our work has included a number of projects. So these are some of the environmental vision, which I've mentioned a little while ago, that's coming forward in the coming weeks. The Brentford High Line, you may be aware of this project. This is something that we're working closely with Hounslow on, and that's to convert a disused railway line that runs from the A4 down to Brentford Town into our own High Line. That's progressing forward. It's going to take a while, but hopefully we'll get there. Bringing the Brentford Fountain home. We've been at this one for a while now, and we know that we've got the support of the Heritage Lottery Fund. We've just got to find a home for it. That's our real problem. It's a big beast, but we don't want to see it languishing out on a side road out in the west of the borough. Brentford Gate Bridge, I know this one has been up in the past, but we're talking about connectivity, and we firmly believe that Brentford should become a destination town, and to do that, we need better connectivity. So why not connect with the other side of the river with a footbridge, as been proposed by the Brentford Gate Bridge, which will work both ways. It will take Brentford residents to Kew and bring people back over as well. Another little project of ours is to come up with a bridge from the Ham to Syon Park. As you well know, access to Syon Park from Brentford, unless you're a resident of Brentford Dock and you have the privilege to go through their gate, is a long drive or walk round to Syon Park. We know that the Duke is very keen to maximise the potential of Syon Park, and we believe that with the Ballymore development coming forward and the influx of residents and the kind of projections that we've shown here, that a bridge like this, a footbridge, would do wonders for people. And again, it's about connectivity, and we can connect through to the Thames Path as well. Brentford Waterside Heritage Trail. I mean, Michelle alluded to this earlier on. This is a project we're working on at the moment through the Thriving Communities Fund. And the idea is to create a trail from Kew Bridge through to Brentford Bridge, picking up on the illustrious heritage of Brentford, which is pretty fantastic. And it needs to be marked whilst we have all this development going on. We don't want to lose that. And St Lawrence's Church, I think we're all aware of what's been going on there. We're very concerned about how that moves forward. We set up a liaison group in Brentford with Ballymore, and we speak to them on a quarterly basis, but extracting information as to the future of the church has been quite hard, but hopefully we think it may be moving forward. But we are also massively concerned with the graveyard and what's gone on there. So that's our presentation. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions or comments, we'll happily field them.
Okay, right, I've got the stopwatch out. 1 minute, all right? 1 minute each. Anybody who wants to say anything? Sorry? Mel, hang on a sec. Let me set this stopwatch, Mel, because I know how we can go on. Right, Mel Collins.
Yeah, very quickly, congratulations on the restoration of the drinking fountain in St Paul's recreation ground. That was a case of working with councillors, with Heritage and also the local school. So well done.
So just a correction on that one, Mel. That was a Friends of St Paul's recreation ground project rather than Brentford Voice.
Okay, good, thank you. Well done, Mel, 30 seconds, including the answer. Salman.
Well, I just want to say thank you for your presentation, but also thank you for everything you do for Brentford. I really do applaud. And I'm a councillor for Isleworth, but I live in Brentford. Jim knows I live next door to him. But thank you for everything you do for this community. And I really appreciate the constructive attitude you take. I know you've got some criticisms of the council, but I really appreciate the way you engage with the council and constructively criticise. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor.
Excellent. Anyone else? Oh, let's reset. Sorry?
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Councillor.
Theo Dennison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. I have to say I was slightly surprised by the very positive nature of your presentation, because certainly you start off by a discussion about the housing crisis. How do you define the housing crisis? Because I know a number of people say there's a housing crisis, but there seems to be a number of different definitions. One being there's a shortage of affordable housing, and the other one is far too much inappropriate or excessive development going on locally. I'm slightly surprised that you're slightly neutral on that issue. You might, for example, want to just make a comment of what you think about Peter Mason's view that growth on its present levels is unsustainable. He announced this last week. And then finally, just in terms of the 15-minute neighbourhood, it could very well be the case we get a 15-minute neighbourhood, because with the amount of traffic congestion we're getting, we're going to be ground to a halt, and you're going to have to walk to almost everything if you actually want to get anywhere. And what's your view on the transport issue rather than just a housing issue?
Thank you, Theo. Gentlemen?
I'll have a bash. Thank you, Councillor. The housing crisis, I suppose, is at least threefold, I think. One is the crisis of affordability. The housing market is broken, the housing system is broken. It just doesn't deliver what people want. One is about distribution as well, I think. I'm thinking here, geographical distribution. I mean, we can do nothing, or very little, as Martin said, I think, to affect the drive to provide more housing. And what's the government? The government's target is it 300,000 a year? At least it was, for the country as a whole. And London's share of that is more or less determined, and through that, Brentford's share of that is eventually translated. But I think so we've got a whole series of crises, and some people have said we have at least three. We have a climate crisis, a housing crisis, and an economic crisis, and trying to balance the demands of each of those is incredibly difficult. I mean, I think I personally feel when I look at the impact on climate of just construction, I think there's some horrifying figures around. I think he's gone. There's a member for our environment group who's sort of done a quick calculation on a development plan at Chiswick Roundabout. Well, you remember it was what was called the Chiswick Curve. And the back of a fag packet calculation is that the lifetime embodied carbon emissions from that, as it's currently proposed, would actually be the equivalent of all that the London Borough of Hounslow, as a producer of, the council, not the whole group, would produce over the period of the Climate Action Plan, which is quite staggering. But we really, the huge issue, apart from the climate crisis for us, is the supporting infrastructure. And I think if you talk to anyone in our neck of the woods, they will say the same thing. I mean, it's particularly the case in relation to transport, public transport, but there are other issues about infrastructure. Includes, yes, drains and stormwater channels that actually work, given the level of development. It covers green space, it covers health facilities, it covers education, leisure and art facilities and so on. The infrastructure is just not coming forward. And yet what always happens is that, I've actually heard the leader of the council, I think, say this, that infrastructure will follow development. Well, that's not the way it should be. I don't wish to...
like the London Docklands. Look, thank you.
That's all right. It was a very long answer.
No, and it was a good answer. You finished on a high note or a low note. Anybody else? Councillors? Good. Anybody out there? Even if it's just... Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Sorry, Tony, can I just add one more thing to what Jim said, is that with this level of development coming forward and what he's just highlighted, I think we've got to start looking at stress testing what we've got in terms of infrastructure at the moment in what's coming forward, because if we don't, it's going to hit us like a brick wall at some point when all this stuff comes to roost. So start acting on it now, and we might be in a better position for the future, but we can't just sit and wait. And as Jim has just alluded to, you can't let infrastructure follow development.
No, we know. I think a lot of people out there know that, but I don't think the people that do make do make the runnings actually appreciate that, and maybe we can start doing suggesting that some kind of change in the way that we do plan and that we do. We do make decisions on these developments. Dominic, look, I'm going to give you a minute as well, mate, because we're running out of time, and I'm not going to extend standing orders.
People don't know, we rarely talk about canals in London these days. In Hounslow, we've got canals. In Brentford, we've got canals. There's nowhere to actually hire a canal boat on the River Thames, which is bizarre. And we've got a wonderful base at Brentford. Why not develop the potential of Brentford as a canal base for tourism, for jobs, and actually put the canal in Brentford on the map? Let's see it on the map. It's my idea. Thanks.
Absolutely. We started talking to the Canals and Rivers Trust as part of the tourism the tourism meetings that we had. And you're quite right. I mean, I don't know if you can get one down at Paddington Basin or well, you can get a little Venice, but it's possibly bringing something closer to the town. Right. Look, thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just add on?
Go on, Martin.
Just add on to that point is, in case you're not aware of it, is we've had 2 attempts at trying to organise a canal festival, and obviously the pandemic put paid to those. But we are planning one for next year, and hopefully it's going to be one of the major points of the Summer of Culture. We've just got to firm up some dates, but we are talking to CRT, and we've got some big plans, and we know we've got the support financially coming forward for it, so hopefully that will happen this year, and the pandemic won't see this one off as well.
Look forward to that. No, look forward to that. Might coincide with the new bridge over to Robin Grove. Right, that's it on this one. So next item, can we have a look at those? Can we have a look at those minutes from the last meeting? I wasn't here. Do you agree the minutes? Those of you who were here.
I think I chaired it, and I have no memory of what happened. But yeah, fine. It's so long ago.
Okay. Shall we move those as agreed? Okay, agreed. And finally. We've got that other item, which is the forward plan. I know some people did make some comments on this, but can I get you to if you haven't submitted anything, can I get you to submit something either to me, Kay Duffy, to me and Kay Duffy. And we'll add them to the action plan. We don't need to approve it here, but what's here is for information. Right, anybody got any other business? Yeah? Well, that's not bad, is it, Mel? You didn't even have to move extension of standing orders. I know you love that sort of thing.
Chair,
sorry, go on.
This action plan is a joke. It's fantastically out of date. No progress has been made certainly on mine and a number of the other things.
Well, okay, well, update it then. Give us some updates, on your projects. I've updated mine, and a couple of others have updated theirs. Is
it up to us to update it? Is that
well, tell it. It's up to you to submit some comments, and then they will be added to the new action plan for.
I will happily do that. Thank you.
Sorry, man. Sorry. I thought we did put an email out, but it doesn't matter. I know it's all been quite rushed this, to get this going. But thank you. And if I can make that clear to everybody, and Bill Lee will minute that. Look, ladies and gentlemen, officers, Gary, Yag, thanks for bearing with us. Michelle, thank you for that vital information. Obviously, let's get it. And thank you. Well, thank you for Brentford Free Church for the refreshments and the facility and the check is in the post. Yeah. All right. Look, thanks for coming.